Lavanya, are you there?
Hi, Bede. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Great.
Now, what I want to discuss today with you is, you know how we were talking about drowning in samsara, and samsara is the very specific condition that makes Vedanta valuable, because Vedanta resolves samsara. Okay? Now, but in order for us to appreciate Vedanta, we first of all have to see that we have the particular problem that Vedanta deals with. And what I want to do is I want to go through this really step by step so we don't miss any steps. So we're very clear on what we mean by reactivity. Because normally speaking, which we will show, reactivity, or subjectivity is the word that we're going to be using, reactivity occurs all the time. So that's what I want to, that's what I'm basically wanting to we're going to just go in and around, we're going to discuss it, and we may not finish we're not going to finish the topic in this talk, but we'll begin to, what's important is to see that we need to see that this problem of samsara belongs to me. I'm involved with this every day. I'm basically drowning in it, even though I may not be that aware of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes complete sense. I think that, some people, they just go about their days with maybe not much opportunity to have their buttons pushed. Maybe some days are like that, whereas other days it's like the stress just gets piled on. But I think if we look at the totality of our lives, we'll see that we're drowning most of the time, that we're dissatisfied, and we're reacting most of the time, and we have very little time where we come up for air. So it's a great topic, and I'm glad we're not going to finish it in one session, because I think I think we could really unpack this topic for a few sessions. So yeah.
You're exactly right, and that's what we're going to do. You see, because you see, the thing is that even like what you say, what happens is, without knowing it, we set up our lives in such a way to protect ourselves from even the awareness of our deep sense of dissatisfaction, a sense of being inferior and defective, and a sense of insecurity. Our whole life is built around defending ourselves against this, but we've got so many habitual ways of doing this. Often we're not aware of the fact. We're not aware of the fact that we're actually being reactive. Now, I just want to go, first of all, let me just say this. Let's imagine, I want you not to think about where you were born.
Okay.
But you couldn't, could you? It instantly come up into your mind, didn't it?
I have to think about it in order to try not to think about it.
Right. So what happens is that, because I asked you that, what happens is the thought about where you're born automatically comes up without your volition, without your will. It just basically, I said something and out it comes.
Exactly. Just like in sight, when someone puts, for example, an apple in front of me, I can't but help seeing that it's an apple.
It's choiceless, yes. Now,
exactly.
Everybody has what we would call a psychological content. Now, this is all our memories, and particularly the memories to do with this. We've had experiences with other people and being on the receiving end of their actions, okay, from year dot. And many of those experiences, many of them have been painful. And those painful memories are stored in our mind. And when we get into a similar situation, they just come into operation. Okay?
So are you saying they're like repressed memories in our unconscious that...
No, I wouldn't. No, not repressed. They're they're mental content, like in a box.
Okay.
It's a limited content. It's like it's there. And what happens is that there are experiences of pain, and various feelings that we've had in the past and all of this sort of stuff. And the present event can trigger it. And so suddenly the very experience that we had maybe even when we were 2 years old is resuscitated. And once again, we're feeling the exact same depth of feeling that we once had before. But it's a revivification. It's a revivification, making it alive again. Okay? And we've also got other memories too. Not only have we been on the receiving end, and on the receiving end of all this hurt, by the way, there's a tremendous accumulation of hurt. When we're hurt, we're angry. You see, we want to strike back. So not only is there the pain, the hurt, but this actually creates desires to hurt back. And we often satisfy those desires. Have you seen people rubbishing people around in the office, backstabbing and talking bad about people? Have you seen that?
Oh, of course, yes.
That's satisfying hostility. And that's ubiquitous, isn't it? Like when you look at social life, the hostility is ubiquitous. It's not seen as hostility, it's just called being negative or critical. But in actual fact, it's attacking. But the basis of all of that attacking is this accumulation of hurt. You were going to say?
Right. No, I agree with you. I was just wondering, why is it, and I think you're going to be talking about this, why is it that we want to get rid of our hurt? Because anger seems like so much of a worse emotion. Both hurt and anger feel bad, but somehow anger makes us feel more powerful, like we're in control of our hurt.
It's our best. It's our best solution. It's a solution to the hurt. It's not a very effective solution. It's very harmful, actually. But the fact of the matter is that we feel not only do we feel hurt, which can be reactivated, but we want to protect ourselves against the hurt through hostility. And even when we're talking bad about other people and going, oh, what an idiot, all of that stuff, we're satisfying at it. We're giving relief to the hurt. We don't know that, but that's what the real go is,
Right. We have so many justifications. I mean, we wouldn't call it gossip. We would just say, oh well, that person is such and such.
They're such an idiot. They're such an idiot. They deserve our
moral pedestal. Sorry, go ahead.
They're such an idiot. They deserve our criticism.
Exactly, they deserve it. We're on a higher moral ground than they are. So we justify this in so many ways.
Well, that's where we get to the other point. You see, we've also not only been on the receiving end and getting hurt, we've also hurt other people. So we feel guilty, and when you feel guilty, you feel bad about yourself. You feel as if you feel self-hating, and you feel as if you've got defects. There is nothing quite as juicy and nothing quite relieves that feeling of having defects than that desire to judge others in a harsh way. That is the most delicious of feeling, because first of all, it gives me a magnificent feeling of being inflated and superior. And again, I'm not aware that I'm trying to resolve my guilt. See, Swami Dayananda says the basis of our psychology is guilt and hurt, and he's absolutely right. And it explains so much of human behavior. But now let's stick back to this reactivity. So we have this psychological content, which we can see is leaking out all over the place. And I want to look at, first of all, the mechanism of it, the mechanism of what actually happens. And we're going to go back to that rope and the snake analogy. So here we are, we're looking at a rope, but instantly, instead of seeing a rope, we see a snake. Now, what I want to point here is this. What has become active in us essentially is a way of seeing. I am seeing a snake. So you see, it's not a matter of just reactivity. The reactivity always involves an I sense, a sense of myself, seeing something, whether it's seeing myself, seeing other people, or seeing circumstances. So what happens is I see the rope, but I don't see the rope. Instantly that I see the rope is transformed. by the unconscious mechanism of projection. I project the rope, I project the snake onto the rope, and what I am looking at is not what's in front of me, but I'm experiencing, without knowing it, this is what in Vedanta we mean by unconscious. Without knowing it, I'm unconsciously, the mental mechanism has come into operation. It's projected a snake, and here I am, and I'm looking at a snake, thinking that what I'm seeing actually exists in the world. I have no idea that it's just what they call in Vedanta notional. It is only a notion. However, as far as I am concerned, what I'm seeing is a snake.
Yes, I mean, it's so true. It happens to us all the time. If we think about it, if we're in a dark room or we're walking somewhere in the dark, we have this experience that we see something is something benign or just a piece of object, but maybe it's a scary animal. We superimpose unknowingly, and we react, but we don't realize that the reaction has been caused by an erroneous way of seeing, which is not real. So
the unconsciousness, yes, the unconscious projection.
Right, exactly, yes.
So what happens here is this. Like I told you, how many, have you ever in your life ever been criticized or verbally attacked by others?
Yes.
Right, we all have a history of that. Now, what happens in present time, someone comes along, and what they're doing is, if we stick to facts, they're talking to us in a terse tone of voice. That's the fact. But suddenly we find ourselves looking at them as if they're a real horrible person. So we're seeing a horrible person. All that's happening is, as a person is talking to us in a harsh voice. But without even, it's so quick, it's like what I said, what's your name? You instantly think othening. It's exactly this. We're not aware of this fact, but what's happened is, what's come into operation is this unconscious projection. So suddenly here I am, and the looking comes from me. I am seeing a horrible, nasty person. Okay? Now, Swami Dayananda's got a beautiful saying, how he explains this. He says, because you see it, it's there. This is what he calls subjectivity. Because
it makes so much sense.
Oh, it's beautiful. Because I see it, it's there. Because I see an idiot there, I am seeing an idiot. But, and here's the problem, am I aware that I'm actually projecting a notion? It's not so much I doing, the mind's projecting a notion of the horrible, nasty person. I'm not aware of that at all. As far as I'm concerned, I am looking at reality, and I don't know that I'm not looking at reality. I don't know that I'm actually looking at an unconsciously projected notion that comes from my own mind. So I'm giving reality to something. I'm making a mistake, which is a mistaking. Okay? It's a mistake when we're taking it wrongly, but I'm completely unconscious of it.
But couldn't you say, well, even in the moment of anger or afterwards, you could say, well, yeah, I may think this person is a horrible person, but I know that this person is also a loving and kind person. So this person has, multiple facets to their personality, just like I do.
But now you've moved and you've shifted into another way of seeing.
Okay, I see.
You're
just talking about that moment of the perception of the person or the seeing of the person as a horrible person, or seeing the snake in that moment we're talking about.
Well, that's actually where life is lived. We can create ideas that it's not there, but really that right now, right where I am, as I am, is my life. Right? And at any one moment, I am seeing in a certain way. This is very important for our practice of Vedanta. Otherwise, we create an object of ourselves, which is another projection. And we go, oh, that person said, oh, I'm an idiot. Let's have a look now. And I'm looking at myself in front of myself and going, oh, yeah, that's me, all right. Oh, and then I feel bad about the projection. So even when we think about ourselves or when we think about other people, we're just caught up in this subjectivity. Now, so we have to see, well, where does the subjectivity occur? Because we need to know where it occurs, because that's where we resolve it too, by the way. So right now, right where I am, as I am, I'm seeing you as a horrible, nasty person because you've said or done something that I don't like. Okay?
Following, yes.
But what I want to see, can you see how we're enclosed then? We're cut off from what's happening. We're no longer living in the world. We're kind of living in our head. We're living in what Swami Dayananda calls, we're living in our world.
Right, I completely understand. And I think maybe some people might say that, you know, if we didn't do that, people might walk all over us.
Again, that's another issue. But what happens is this, is that, what happens is we of course justify our actions and we justify our anger. Of course we do. But we're not, we'll be dealing with that a little bit later. But right now, all I want to look at is first of all, there's an unconscious mechanism. Now there's a rule. Now this is the rule, and this is a very important rule, because this gives us the secret. This gives us the basis of, well, how do I transform my life into something better? How do I transform my life so that I'm not feeling unhappy and dissatisfied? I'm not feeling hatred and enmity towards other people, and I'm not resisting the facts of my circumstances. That's an important question, isn't it?
Right. So yes, there needs to be a recognition that first I am being subjective in the majority of the moments in my life, and I am dissatisfied with my projection and dissatisfied with my anger and how I go about interacting with people and reacting with people. So unless that's there, it's like, okay, well, you know, I get angry sometimes, I get upset sometimes, it's part of life. But unless we have like that seeing or that acknowledgement that no, I'm not happy with these reactions and my way of seeing things, nothing will be done about it.
That's precisely the point, because unless I know that the problem is my way of seeing, that the problem is located with me, I will completely believe in the sincerity of my dramatization. Now we get to the next point. This is the point here. If we just had a way of seeing and that was all it was, it's just a thought. You see, when people hear about Vedanta and it says about a notion, we don't mean a notion like just a little thing that sits in our head. We're talking about a way of seeing, and this is what happens. As we see, so we be. So if I see a snake in front of me, that seeing pervades myself as an individual in the form of certain types of thinking. Oh my God, there's a snake. Oh, how am I going to get out of here? My emotion, I'm absolutely afraid. There's a physiological reaction where all my intestines are squeezing up. My breathing's going faster so that I can run. And then I have a pressure to act. So there's an absolute pressure in terms of this, is that our way of living always conforms to our way of seeing. That's a rule. That's a rule. If I'm seeing you or somebody seeing some other person as a neurotic, crazy woman or a nasty, despicable man, when I'm looking at that person, all of me, as I see, I will be with that person. You see, the pressure is just a natural thing. As you see, so you be. And the problem is, have you noticed that when you're under the sway of anger, which is anger isn't an emotion, it's a form of subjectivity, actually. The emotion just is a function of the subjectivity. That's what's so magnificent about Vedanta. All we want to do is, if we can collapse the subjectivity, all of that goes. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have to do all the psychodynamic kind of meddling with the mind and trying to fix it and all that nonsense. Because we see that subjectivity takes all these various forms: sadness, grief, confusion, boredom, hostility, envy, the whole. I mean, it's just the whole. It's just all different forms of the same thing, which is a great thing to know because. But the thing is that as we see, we feel a pressure to live how we see, and we find ourselves living it. Have you noticed that when you're angry? Have you ever said things that you regret and done things and said things that you regret when you're under the sway of anger?
No, never.
Oh, I never knew that I was talking to a saint. I feel highly privileged.
Of course, it happens every day.
Of course. Now this is the thing. Unless we see, the thing is that the way of seeing is a way of being. This is the whole point. This is why, unless there's a transformation of the way we see, and particularly for the beginning parts of Vedanta, which deals with the growth of the individual, it is how we see our mind and our reactions and our actions. So how we see ourselves, how we see other people, and how we see the world. Unless that undergoes a radical change, and the word radical means to the root, in other words, my way of seeing, unless my way of seeing is transformed, it doesn't matter what I do, because what's going to happen is when I look at myself, I'm going to get triggered. I'm going to go, oh, I made a mistake again. Oh my God, I can't stand myself. So that I get caught up in more subjectivity. When other people talk to me in a harsh or insensitive way, which they are always going to, suddenly, instantly, bang, I'm into it again. The subjectivity comes into operation because the unconscious projection occurs instantly without me knowing it and without me seeing anything. And I find myself acting it out. Do you see
Right, so the orientation you're saying is really that the world is capable and has the power to control my emotions, and I'm not responsible for them really, because it's other people, it's the external world that's making me angry. And what you're trying to tell us is that it's the external world is just, they're not making us angry, it's just our way of seeing people and things and situations that is triggering maybe a past way of seeing, and the reaction that we have is instantaneous. So it's not like we're sitting there thinking, oh well, now I'm seeing this person as this way, and then there's the anger. It's so sudden, and it gets us trapped in this bubble of subjectivity, and we're all walk around with this sort of bubble of emotions, and we're never really seeing people and situations as they are, but through our filter of subjectivity and our filter of reactions, really.
Well, actually, I wouldn't call it a filter. I just simply say that the anger is a way of seeing, and it's a way of living. You see, living is what we say and what we do, and how we say and what we do. Forgetting about all the other stuff, this is what living is. And
right.
And the thing is that, and if it's being determined by our mental content, which is a small part of ourselves actually, but it takes up all the room. And I love the expression you saying bubble. Can I use that? We're caught in a bubble, but we don't know we're caught in a bubble. We're in a room full of mirrors thinking we're looking out. And you see, and you see, sometimes people wonder, why is it I can't change? Like, what is it? Why is it that I just don't seem to be able to change? Because various types of actions of other people, the tones of voice, the way they talk to you, various kind of wrongdoings, they just simply bang, bang. It just triggers, you see, it just triggers. When we look at ourselves, have you ever been depressed about your depression, angry about your anger, and fearful about your fear?
Of course, it's unavoidable. I mean, we're self-conscious people, so we're going to think about our emotions and our reactions, and we're And that's where the sense of dissatisfaction comes, is because we don't like to be depressed. We don't like to be angry. If we liked it, or if we were okay with it,
Yes.
then we wouldn't have the anger upon anger, the depression upon depression.
Yes,
Yeah.
because so what happens is I get angry, so it's a way of seeing becomes active in me. So people and things don't hurt me. They're only instrumental in revealing a pain that's already here. So this painful way of seeing comes into operation. And then I then look at it and go, oh my goodness, I got angry. And then that creates another reaction of self-pity. You see, so I'm never looking at anything. You know, I go, oh, it's terrible the way I act. Well, that's not quite true. It's just you act badly. I mean, I acted badly and I regret it. Finish. But oh no, what happens is that this mechanism, and the thing is that when we're enclosed in it, at any one moment we're enclosed in subjectivity. You see, fundamentally what we are in terms of reactivity is we're a wanter. I am a wanter. And you see, if we didn't want to be happy, we would have no frustrations. Now, I'm not saying we don't desire things. I'm talking about wanting to be happy. I'm not talking about wanting a car. Swami Dayananda says that there's two kinds of wanting. I want a car so I can have transport, and I want a car so I can be happy. He says the wanting a car to be happy is the problem, because we have these insistent wants, and whenever they're even remotely frustrated, bingo, anything that we see that is as an obstruction to these wantings, you know what I mean, these desires, what happens is the whole mechanism is triggered. And the thing is that my whole life is built around this subjectivity. Now, how do we know we're in subjectivity? This is the very important. How do I know that I'm caught up in subjectivity? First of all, any form of unhappiness where I'm unhappy. Now, I want to make a distinction here, by the way, too. There's a distinction between me having a reaction and being aware that I'm having a reaction. Because notice how I'm now aware I'm having a reaction, like I'm aware of a tree. And my becoming the reaction, my becoming the seeing. Do you see the difference? We see, if something happens, like someone does something and I go, he's done that or she's done that and I don't like it. That's factual, isn't it? But I haven't become the reaction, have I?
No.
It's
so,
just...
So you're saying that one can have a perception of, or like an acknowledgement of one's reaction without becoming the reaction.
Yes. You see, some people think Vedanta is about not having reactions. That's you're not going to be able to avoid that. It's becoming the reaction. That's the problem, because my sense of identity and the reaction become one and the same. I literally become the anger. I become the confusion. I become the boredom. I become the envy. I become the loneliness. I become the sadness. And we're not denying that this type of thing is incredibly painful. It is painful. This is human suffering. But the good news is this. This is the good news. This suffering is not set in concrete. You see, when we think our suffering is feelings, we go, oh, how am I going to change my feelings? And we try and be positive. I go, oh, I'll try and be positive. I'll try and be positive. It doesn't matter how positive I am when I'm in the way of seeing. The fact of the matter is, it's a law. Hello? Hello, Avani?
Yeah.
We got cut off from there. Okay.
Yeah.
What happens? It doesn't matter what I do about my feelings, because I see in a certain way. If I see you as a terrible, horrible person who's hurt me, I cannot help but feel angry. I can try to do various operations on myself to get rid of the anger, but you see, luckily it's not. You know how these emotions seem so real and so strong and have so much force. They do. But their substance is the subjectivity. The substance is the subjectivity. It's a wrong way of seeing. And if that wrong way of seeing goes away, let's imagine, if it's not there, the entire individual is transformed.
Right. I understand that. I'm a little bit, I wanted to ask about this way of seeing, and then the difference between seeing and becoming. So you had earlier that, Puja Swamiji said that seeing is becoming. Then you mentioned that there's a distinction. One can see or one can see and become. So if you see, let's say you're seeing an emotion arise in you, isn't that becoming itself? I mean, the anger and sadness and boredom don't exist somewhere else. They're centered on me.
Yes,
I
but
am angry.
no, that's it.
How can the mind be angry? I mean, it's my reaction. It's
Okay, I'll just go over that. What happens is when we're caught up in a reaction, our I sense becomes one and the same with the emotion. So I'm experiencing myself. I say, I am angry. Where there's another one where I'm just seeing that there's an angry reaction. I'm annoyed. I'm seeing it. I'm not getting lost in it. I'm not drowning.
I see. I'm
just aware of it. This is when we come to karma yoga, it becomes very important that we face things without getting lost. That's the whole point. There's an actual method, which we're going to go over later, of how we can be free of this subjectivity. Because all I wanted to do today is, can you see that the way we see the world, what happens is that constantly our own reactions are triggering our subjectivity. Other people are triggering our subjectivity. They're instrumental in it. They're the faction. They're instrumental in it being triggered. It comes from us, and circumstances that are difficult or not to our liking trigger our subjectivity. And so what happens is that, and often we see when we say we're a bit annoyed or bored, you know what I mean? Like we're a bit annoyed and bored, and we go, oh, it's so boring, it's so boring. The thing is that we normally don't see that boredom as subjectivity, do we? I am bored.
No.
It seems normal. But
right.
But what Vedanta, what the message of Vedanta is that all of these forms of unhappiness, the basis of them is subjectivity, this unconscious projection that's going on, and my sense of identity is identified with the subjectivity. And what it does is that it has a method or an approach to life, and another way of seeing that becomes available to us that lifts us out of this subjectivity, which we'll be going on into later. But I just wanted today was to make it very clear that this reactive subjectivity is we drown in it. We literally drown. In other words, we get lost in it. We get lost in it. And we move it in and around it. We move it.
And it can be in various degrees too. It may not be that we're, someone might listen to you and say, well, I'm not drowning in any reactivity. I go to work every day. I have to take care of my children. I'm contributing to the world. I'm not getting drowned at all. Like, I don't have any problems sleeping. I'm relatively healthy. But what you're saying is that this reactivity can occur in various degrees. So it just basically exposes our dissatisfaction, and we can be sometimes extremely dissatisfied, or we can be just a little dissatisfied in terms of our sense of boredom.
And often people want to assert to others, I'm happy, because that's a defense against the unhappiness. But here's an important point. Vedanta is only for those people who can recognize this particular problem, and not everyone can. And so we're not trying to talk to people into the fact of trying to get them to believe you're unhappy. We're just, for those people who can actually discern that they often have an experience of a deep sense of self-dissatisfaction, and they engage in becoming to try and become happy. The only reason I want to become happy is I'm not happy already. That's what Swami Dayananda says.
Right.
And the only reason that people seek happiness is because they're unhappy already. So what we're going to do, we're going to deal more with this in our next conversation, but I just wanted to open up the ground so that, first of all, if we fit the profile of Vedanta, if we can thoroughly understand, yes, I'm caught in this condition of self-dissatisfaction, a feeling of self-defect, and a feeling of insecurity. And a lot of my life is about protecting me from this. My strivings are to do this. My reactions are related to this. For the person who recognizes that this is a problem, Vedanta will be something extremely valuable. But if I do not recognize that I have the problem, and even Vedanta can actually, because Vedanta is a light in which we can see our life clearer, it can shed light on it so we can actually come to understand that, yes, we are caught in samsara. And the fact of the matter is, if I find myself criticizing other people, then I know I'm suffering from hurt, even though the hurt may be unconscious. If I find myself getting self-righteous and being self-righteously critical as opposed to attacking others, I know I'm suffering from guilt. If I can see myself bragging and trying to look good in the eyes of other people and myself, then obviously I feel deficient. Otherwise, I wouldn't do that. If I get hurt by the words of others, it means that suddenly all my defenses hasn't worked and it's been exposed. So this condition actually is all over the place, but it is universally denied.
Right. I think that's a very good point. It is very much universally denied.
Yes, because it's too painful, actually. So then, I mean, have you ever heard these people say, "I never worry about that type of thing, I'm cool"?
Yeah, I'm cool, yeah.
They are showing you, they're presenting themselves as a person who doesn't have any problems or difficulties. Why is it so important for them? Because, again, their very behavior and the words they're using is a function of protecting themselves against this. And so we never try in Vedanta to convince people of this. We just simply say, this is the teaching. If you can see this in yourself, then you're in for a good ride. If you can't see this for yourself, the benefits of Vedanta will not be available to you. And if you're a student of Vedanta who's taken it as a theoretical subject, again, the benefits will not be available to you because you won't see where the core problem is, that I am entrenched in a way of seeing, and this brings about a way of being, because as I see, so I be, and then I live out this way of being much to my detriment and to the detriment of other people, and I compulsively tend to do it again and again and again. So next time, before we close, is there anything you'd like to say before we finish?
I think that you've covered it brilliantly. I like the last point of that Vedanta is not trying to convince anyone or anything, but it simply just lays out on the table the reality. If we really are honest and want to analyze our experience and our opinions and our notions of ourselves, then it'll become clear that the sense of self-dissatisfaction is drowning us, and it's all in the way of seeing. And the way of seeing is not something that we can just pick up and drop. We become that. We become the way of seeing. So we are entangled in this roller coaster where we're strapped, really. We're strapped to our seats in this roller coaster of emotional reactivity. And I think that that's a very good point. So
right, and you see the thing too, when we again, and I can't say this enough, Vedanta is a light. When we don't study Vedanta, we study our lives in the light of Vedanta. And if we're not studying our lives in the light of Vedanta, and we're studying a thing called Vedanta, we're not studying Vedanta. That's a very bad mistake. It's understandable, but the whole purpose and relevance of Vedanta is that it provides a light in which I can see my life in a new and clear way. Anyway, thank you so much. Thanks very much, Avani. And
thank you, Pete. Thank you.
I look forward
to the session.
Yeah, and I look forward to talking to you again on Monday. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye.